Okay, now we're recording. Welcome to the Schiller Hamilton Law Firm Podcast. Today is an extra special big day because we are joined by none other than Mr. Schiller himself, Bennett Schiller, all the way up from Beaufort. Thank you for coming up to Rock Hill today to sit down and talk to us. Not just two birds with one stone. You're able to knock out a hearing today this morning.
I did, and since I was already halfway here, I decided that I would make the trip up and finally get a chance to spend a little time with you guys and do a podcast.
Well, what do you think of the new digs?
I love it. And, I've been wanting to come up here because, obviously the pandemic has kind of changed the way we practice law, so it's been a little more difficult. But, it's good to be here. It's good to see everybody. This firm is obviously very important to me. You guys have been doing a great job. So people are always asking me, they say, hey, well, when are you going up and doing a video? They're hogging all the glory. I said, no, they're not. They're doing a great job. And obviously, it's been fun watching you guys do the video. So I'm excited to be here today to do one.
Yeah, this was a really cool COVID project because, we were shut down for a little while. Not really, we kept working, but, we were working remotely and I was here by myself and started to realize, this room would be great for a studio. It's kind of like the third conference room that we don't normally use. And it seems like an under-leveraged asset in the building. So we need to do something. So, yeah, and young Trent here did a great job setting everything up. It's working pretty well.
Well, what's been great about it, watching it, a lot of times people have a lot of questions about what it is we do. They don't understand who we are or why they should get a lawyer involved. So it's been really interesting to see how you guys have put some of these question and answers together. I think it's been very helpful. So hopefully we can touch on a couple of those today.
Yeah.
And get a little more background about the firm.
Well, it's kind of funny. No one wants to read anymore, right? We always heard for so long like, oh, we need to do blogs. But, how many blogs do we have on our website? And people still call and say, hey, tell me about this. Well,
I tell you, over the years, it's changed so much. I mean, obviously, when I first started practicing law in 94, you just took out a 2-page ad in the yellow pages and your phones rang off the hook. And then, of course, it changed. And then the internet came along. We had to develop a good website. And then social media comes along. And so you've got to respond because that's where people's attention, that's where the attention is. And so if we want to be able to help others and serve others, we need to make sure we're able to give them information, provide them value so they can see why it's important that they hire us. So I think y'all have done a really good job, and it's an important, platform for us to be able to communicate to our potential clients and to our current clients, what it is we do and how we can benefit them. So it's pretty cool watching it unfold.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned you've been practicing law since 94 because you are the senior statesman around here. But I want to talk a little bit about your origin story and kind of what made you want to go to law school, and because you're the second Citadel grad that we've had on the show now.
That's great.
Charlie beat you to it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I saw that.
But tell me a little bit how you ended up at the Citadel and how you ended up at law school.
Well, like many kids, I enjoyed certain things about school and other things I didn't really enjoy, but I found out pretty quickly that I really enjoyed student government, student council, and I got involved pretty early. And in 8th grade, I had a school teacher who insisted that I was made out to go to the Citadel. She had a lot of friends that had gone to the Citadel, and I had the opportunity to go to a South Carolina football game. It was really funny because I got to see the Summerall Guards perform at halftime at a South Carolina Citadel football game, and I said, that's me. I got to go do that. And my mom always sort of encouraged me. She always thought that being a lawyer would be something that I would enjoy doing. Didn't really give that much thought. I thought that politics was kind of where I wanted to be. I got into the Citadel. After graduating from the Citadel, I sat out a year and I worked for McNair Law Firm in Columbia, where I met my wife. And then I went to work while I was in law school at University of South Carolina, I went to work for a small plaintiffs firm in Columbia, and it was awesome. I mean, the things that I was able to see them do and help other people and make a difference in their life, it was life-changing for me because I thought, maybe I should go become an attorney general, run for Congress or get involved at the state house level and be a legislator. And having worked at McNair, I decided that's not really what I wanted to do. And then working for that plaintiffs firm in Columbia, it really kind of changed the direction of where I wanted to go. It was amazing to see them step in to someone's bad situation and make it better. And
was there a specific case there or incident that you recall that kind of made you have that light bulb moment?
Well, no, I mean, it was just the guys that I worked for, they were so loved by their clients. Like at Thanksgiving and Christmas, the conference room table would be filled with homemade cakes and cookies, and they were so appreciative of everything that these guys were doing for them. And it made me realize that, being a plaintiff's lawyer and working in that area really does give you an opportunity to have a huge impact on somebody's life. And my dad had gone to Columbia Bible College, and I'd watched him in his ministry make a difference in people's lives. And I've always thought that what a great way to make a living is serving others and making a difference in their lives. So that's kind of how I ended up doing plaintiff's work. I came to work for a plaintiff's practice here in Rock Hill back in '94. I figured out pretty quickly that that's not where I wanted to be. And me and a couple guys, we left and started our own practice in '96. And we opened an office in Lancaster. So we had 2 offices pretty quickly.
So you went out on your own 2 years into your practice.
2 years into my practice, yes. Yeah. And, I just saw some things that I didn't think were where I wanted to be. And I didn't want to do some of the things that I was being asked to do. And so I thought it would be best that I went out and started my own practice. Of course, I didn't know what I was doing at the time, other than I kind of knew what I wanted to do and what I wanted to see the firm that I would start become. And we grew that practice pretty quickly. We had a few setbacks. That firm dissolved around 2001. We started another practice with one of my law partners, great friend of mine still, Robert Reeves. Mm-hmm. He's very active on social media. We see him a lot. He's quite a character. Big mentor for me. I'm always able to pick up the phone and call Robert. Great guy. And then about 5 years into that practice, we all kind of went our separate ways, and I started the Schiller Law Firm somewhere around 2005. Mm-hmm. So the goal there was to be different.
Actually, I remember that day well. I think it was my first day of law school.
I believe so.
So it would have actually been 2006.
So 2006. See,
yeah, because I remember picking up the phone and saying, "Hey, Bennett, I just had my first day of law school. All excited to tell you about it." And you're like, "I can't talk right now. I'm cleaning out my desk."
Yeah. So it's funny because people always ask, well, how did the Schiller Hamilton come about? So I'll tell that story real quick.
Yeah.
Obviously, you were part of our firm as a runner, and a runner basically is the guy that has to run the errands and run to the bank. This is back before we had, as free of exchange of information. We actually had to deliver packages places. We had to actually go to the bank. We couldn't so
it was very physical.
Very physical. So it was great. So I guess you were in your sophomore year maybe, or
I think it was the beginning of my sophomore year. And I think the funniest part about that is when I first started there, I didn't have a car because the transmission had just blown out on my car. So I got the job, but then I wasn't able to actually be a runner and drive anything anywhere. So the first few weeks I was there working, I wasn't actually able to take anything anywhere. I wasn't able to run. So I remember, I think it was you or maybe somebody else gave me something to take somewhere, and I was like, "Oh well, I can't. I don't have a car." It was like, why in the world did we hire a runner without a car?
Yeah.
So, but then I finally got the car repaired. I think I just got a new one. But anyway, long story short, I had to figure out how to make myself valuable in that office, even though I wasn't able to deliver anything anywhere. So I was like emptying trash, cleaning conference rooms, like just trying to keep myself busy until I was actually able to run anything somewhere.
Right. Well, and obviously, like you said, you were just starting law school when we dissolved that firm and opened up Schiller Law Firm. And I remember calling you and said, "Hey, if you want to come back and clerk during the summer or Christmas, certainly could use your help." Obviously, we were starting out very lean at the Schiller Law Firm. But it didn't take long before we had 2 offices. You were working, I guess, you came back, I remember, you sleeping on a buddy's couch, coming down from Ohio to work for 2 weeks at Christmas, 1 week during your spring break. And it worked out pretty good. So over the time, obviously, you and I developed a great relationship. My kids view you as their uncle. And so there's a unique bond there right from the get-go. And I think that kind of plays into, who we are as a firm and what my goal was to build was to create, a family environment that actually serves families. And so I appreciate having folks that work in this firm kind of have that same mentality, putting others first, serving their needs, becoming part of a family, which is really kind of unique to the practice because so many firms are just focused on numbers. How many cases can they sign up? How much money can they produce? And we've always kind of taken a little different approach. And, one of the goals that you and I share together, which made our partnership eventually when we became partners was that, our goal is to put the needs of the client first, which is kind of unique sometimes in the practice. And, people think until they've met us, they think that that's just, something that we say. But
yeah, it's not a slogan.
It's not a slogan. And, the "we've got your back" was always something that was important to me. Even before that, it was, we don't want people to go it alone. People are always hesitant, I believe, to get a lawyer involved because they see so many lawyers on TV.
Yeah, why is that?
Well, I think there's a lack of trust. I think what they see on TV is, my lawyer got me a big check and, so on and so forth. Well, sometimes that's not necessarily what the client, what serves the client's need. It may serve the lawyer's need. So what we focus on here at Schiller Hamilton, and part of why you and I think always had this relationship that was so close, is that we both kind of come from that background, where putting others' needs ahead of your own tends to work out pretty well for you. You think that, if you do that and you do it well, then on the flip side of that, the cases will come, the clients will come, and eventually you'll be able to provide for your family. And that's kind of what we've done. So
over a long enough timeline
that's right.
It just builds and builds.
Yeah, so that's kind of how I got started. I had good mentors early while I was in law school. I saw the plaintiff's practice for what it could be, and I've built my team around finding like-minded individuals who can also care about their clients. And if you read some of our testimonials, people really do get that feeling when they come here. They do feel like this is a family. They do feel like we do care about them, and that's important to me. And, it's not always easy. Sometimes we make mistakes and we struggle. But, at the end of the day, it's putting the right team together. Yeah. And I think that, because of our relationship and because we've been together for so long, it's made it easy for us. I can rely on you and trust you to handle the Rock Hill office, and I don't have to be here because obviously we've opened the Beaufort office, and I've been down there, developing, a reputation in that community, serving at the YMCA, serving in different local charities, Beaufort charities, and things like that. So I think it's important. Another thing that I think separates us as a firm is we're very involved in our community. When you open a practice in a particular market or a small town, I think it's important that you're actually there.
Yeah.
And so many
not just a sign on the side of the road,
or just a car that runs and signs you up from wherever. I think it's important to be actively involved in the community. If you really do care about your clients, then you should care about the community in which they live. And I think that with you being on county council, and now we have a lawyer in Beaufort who serves on the Port Royal Town Council, we've always been very involved. My wife and I have been very involved, and I think it's important to really get to know your community in order to serve. And
really, you and Caroline did that day one when you first moved to Beaufort, getting involved with Beaufort Charities, Water Festival. I can't even, with the YMCA, I don't think I can even list all them off. But really, day one, that's how y'all started to really just put down roots in Beaufort to the point where it seems like y'all have been there for like generations, just as connected as everyone is down there.
Well, the fact that we had 4 children when we moved down to Beaufort allowed us to get to meet a lot of people pretty quickly because our friends had friends and they have parents. And so, we developed relationships with a lot of individuals and we were able to get plugged in. One of the things that we did first was, I got involved in Leadership Beaufort. And Leadership Beaufort through the Chamber of Commerce allows you to really see and understand how everything works together, all the different nonprofits and the government organizations all kind of work together. And it really gave me an opportunity to do that. And I did that in 2014, and my wife did it in 2015. So Leadership Beaufort kind of helped us get started. But, we kind of had started that here. My wife did Junior Welfare League. I was involved in the YMCA board here. And so it's always been important to me to give back. I see too many lawyers that have like a central office. They advertise all over the state. They take cases from all over the state, but they don't have people working in that community. We believe in hiring people that live and work in that community and are involved. And so we do that with our Lancaster office. We've done that here. We do that with Beaufort. So that's just been very important. And I think that, the other side of that is we get a lot of referrals because people know who we are because we're actually in the community. We don't have to rely solely on, the volume of cases that may come in from TV advertising or billboard. We're actually involved in the community serving, and it has helped our practice to grow and to be able to serve more people.
Yeah, I think it's important we talk about that too, because one thing that really struck me when I first started, because when I first started, I went to work in our Lancaster office. And right away, everyone coming in would say, oh, well, Bennett represented my grandmother, or, Bennett represented me in 1997, or whatever the case may be. But most of those people coming in were either referrals from a family member or a repeat client themselves, which, maybe someone was in a wreck and then 10 years later they get in another wreck. But it wasn't because of a billboard. It wasn't because of, necessarily, I mean, we had phone book ads, but it wasn't because of that necessarily. Right. But it was that referral. And that's still the case. It's probably, what would you say, 90%?
Probably 70%.
70% of what we see is coming from some type of referral.
Yeah, when I look at it every month, that's I probably take more pride in that than trying to outsmart the system. There's so many lawyers out there trying to outsmart the system. And of course, we want to provide value, and we want to educate individuals, and we want them to get to know us. And that's why we do social media, and that's why we have a good website and those things. And all of that's very important. But, at the end of the day, there's no greater compliment than somebody referring business to you, right?
100%,
and, what happens there too, and we've talked about this, there's a higher level of trust for the person who's coming in to meet with me for the first time when somebody has referred them to me.
Yeah.
Versus a Yellow Page ad. They come in with a Yellow Page ad, they're really reluctant, they're hesitant, they don't have the same level of trust. And what's really cool about having such a high percentage of referrals and generations now, almost 3 decades I've been doing this, and it's pretty cool because now I've represented 3, sometimes 4 generations of the same family, which is, it's quite an honor. It's humbling sometimes, to know that, they still want us to handle their case. And it makes me proud that the folks here in Rock Hill and in Lancaster, are still able to do that and represent those families that I've represented back, in, like you said, 97, 98.
Well, it's easy to maintain a relationship for a week or a month, but when you have those clients that you've known for a long time that do become like family, and you celebrate their anniversaries and weddings, or you mourn the loss of a loved one with them, that goes a long way. I feel like it's harder that way. It's definitely harder to care, but it's a lot more rewarding at the same time because you feel all of those relationships with them. No, but like I was saying, it's harder when you do care because it requires more effort. It requires more effort to, maintain those relationships and that communication with the clients and, celebrate those things with them. But it's a lot more rewarding in all facets at the end of the day. So
yeah, and also, what is it we're being asked to do? We're being asked to communicate someone else's damages to an insurance company or to a jury, right? And so what's really unique about our firm too, and you and I have agreed that this is more important to us, is that the client actually has an opportunity to come in and meet with their attorney. And
what's funny is that goes against everything we're kind of taught. Like we go to these seminars and they say, oh, you have to have intake people. You got to have intake people going over, running out to scenes and meet with people. You got to have people on the phone, like call centers calling these people. And I'm always a little taken aback by that. And I think you are too, because we really want to take the time to get to know our clients and meet them and find out about their case on the front end.
Right. I mean, again, it's a risk-reward kind of thing. It's something that we have taken the risk of losing some business by not doing that, by not having a non-lawyer spokesperson go out and meet with a client or have them call a call center who does the intake. When they call here, they actually get to speak with the attorney and meet with the attorney, which I think is very important. And I will stand by this till the day I die, that I would rather my client make a decision based on the fact that they've already met me, right?
Right.
How do they make a decision on which law firm to hire
when they haven't met the attorney?
When they haven't met the attorney.
Yeah.
And more importantly, which is even more upsetting sometimes, is how can that lawyer truly advocate and represent someone with whom they've never met? I mean, to me, if you don't know your client and know what they've been through and what the struggle is and how the injury has affected them because you've never spoken with them, you're just reading a medical record, then I just don't understand how they can.
Job.
Yeah, I just don't see how they can get the best result for that individual, right? So, and that's what, one of the things that I think is important is that, our job is to do what's best for the client. Well, if you don't know the client, how do you know you're doing what's best for that client, right? So Sometimes it's speed. Sometimes getting it done quickly is what's most important for the client. Sometimes it's just having their day in court and everything in between, right? So our job is to be mindful and listen and understand and know our client, and that's part of the culture here of our firm, that we take pride in the fact that clients actually get to talk with their lawyer and actually know who their lawyer is.
Okay, Bennett, answer away. How does Schiller and Hamilton stand out? What distinguishes us from other firms of this genre?
Well, we've talked about it in some of my previous discussion with you. Is the goal here at Schiller Hamilton is to serve our clients and serve their needs and not our needs. And part of that, I think, that we talked on is you actually get to know your lawyer. The lawyer gets to know the client. We develop long-term relationships. Many of our clients come back to us again and again, and they refer people to us, and we take a lot of pride in that we're not playing a numbers game simply off of how good we advertise or how many TV commercials we can run or how many billboards we can afford to buy. I think, as we've discussed, some of our better cases and some of our better clients are those that have come to us by way of a referral. And it's important, we try to put enough information out there with social media so that when they are being referred to us by a friend or coworker or family member, and they look online and they see all of our positive reviews and they see some of the information that we've provided through this medium or through our website itself, people are reassured that, we are who we say we are and who the person who referred them thinks that we are. So I think it's important. Two things to answer that question is we spend time with the client face-to-face or in the world today, virtually sometimes, but we're actually involved in the client in the case. They get to meet us, right from the get-go. They come in and they actually get to meet with a lawyer, and then they can make a decision on whether or not they want to hire this firm. Too many firms, individuals are meeting with non-lawyers in the firm or intake specialists, and then they're making the decision to hire that firm, and they've never met the attorney. And that's very frustrating. So we've made it a very important part of our practice to not get to that point, even though there's a lot of pressure to do so. Obviously, like you said earlier, we've been to conferences, I've been to workshops, and the expedient thing to do is to cut the lawyer out of that intake process, let other people do that so that they can sign up a higher number of cases, but then they don't really ever get to know the client. So I think it's really important that we're very involved from day one in the life of the client and in their case, and it helps us communicate what it is what's been taken. Our job is to make sure that the client is given back something that has been taken away from them because of their injury. And that's what we do, and I think that makes us special. And so when we hire people, we want to make sure that that's their goal also. That they didn't go to law school just to make a lot of money, or they don't want just a job so they get paid, right? That they actually believe that working in a law firm gives them the opportunity to do something really special, to serve another person. So when a paralegal opens up that file and makes a phone call to the rental company and sets up that rental car, well, that can be life-changing for that individual, right?
Right.
So instead of waiting on an insurance company to call them back and not having transportation to work and possibly losing their job and
then losing their apartment or house or
right.
Then their family doesn't get fed.
Right. So, every time we touch a file or work on a file, our staff and our team here understands that it may be something that we're used to doing on a daily basis, but it's huge for the client.
Yeah.
We're doing something that is important, and to be able to do that and make a living doing it is what I think makes it really special.
Yeah, I had a case a while back, and I would tell the story often to staff just to kind of help them understand, but we had a client, and we would maybe consider it a smaller wreck. I mean, she had gotten in a wreck, car was totaled, but the car was basically of no value, $1,200 totaled the vehicle. Went to emergency room, went to her family doctor, and that was it. Well, the car was totaled. In the meantime, she lost her job, but she called up to the office every day wanting to know what's going on with the case. And we're like, what is going on with this person? So finally I called her. I said, hey, what's going on? Turns out she had lost her job because she didn't have a car for a couple days. She was working at a gas station, lost the job because she lost the job. She wasn't able to pay rent, lost her home. So now she doesn't have a car or a job or a home. So she's living in a tent behind someone's house, waiting for the case to resolve so that she could get the money to put down for another vehicle and for a deposit on an apartment so that she could show that she had good transportation so she could get her job back or get another job. Just that one wreck with relatively minor damage, not a major injury, devastated her life to where she became homeless and lost her job and lost her car.
Yeah,
devastated her life. There is no small case.
Right. There's no small case. And that's a good point because, it may be something that seems routine to us because we see it all the time, we do it all the time. But for that person, for our client, it's not routine.
Yeah, it was
is.
everything.
And, I've heard stories very similar to that many, many times where they're having to live on a friend's couch, and they've got kids. And they're trying to figure out how to get their kids back and forth to school, or they're trying to figure out how to get them to soccer practice or whatever. And because of this wreck, now their whole life has been interrupted. And so the fun part about what we do and to get involved, the earlier we can get involved, the sooner we can help avoid some of the, especially with like medical treatment, for instance. There's so many times folks that do not have insurance coverage, or if they do have insurance company, they try to go to their doctor and the doctor says, oh, it's a wreck, I'm not going to treat you, you're going to have to pay cash or you're going to have to go somewhere else. One of the things that we're able to do is help make sure that they get the right medical treatment. Our job is to get them to the end, and get them to the point where we can actually get their case resolved so we know exactly what's been taken from them. And so we don't want folks to, malinger on forever. And I tell people all the time, I hope you don't have a big case. And they say, what do you mean by that? Well, if you have a big case, then something's going to go really wrong. Mm-hmm. You may have complications from your surgery. That
means a permanent injury.
Right, a permanent injury, something catastrophic. And I would rather you not have something catastrophic. They say,
we want you to get better.
Right, we want you to get better. We want you to get well, and we want you to recover from your injuries, and especially in workers' comp cases, right? So, at the end of the day, the goal is to get you back to your job, get you back to the point where you can go do your job and still be employed at that employer. And part of the workers' comp is designed to help with that process because that's one of the benefits that they're required to pay is medical treatment. Well, in a car wreck, the insurance company is not responsible for providing you medical treatment. Their job is to reimburse you for medical expenses that you incur. Well, for some people, they can't afford to incur the medical expenses, which prolongs their recovery and makes things worse. So one of the things that we're able to do is get them in to see a doctor. And that helps a lot of clients in many situations that otherwise wouldn't be able to get in to see a doctor.
Yeah, one of the things we saw during COVID was that people were reluctant to go see a doctor, or doctors'
still
offices
are.
weren't seeing people,
yeah, I mean,
or they couldn't get the surgery that they wanted because the doctors,
right.
the
Selective.
hospitals wouldn't. Yeah, they wouldn't schedule selective surgeries. What other differences did you see during that time, or still going on, really?
Well, I mean, I think one of the things, and Joel, kudos to you. You did a really great job of being able to help us mobilize our team where we were able to work from home. Because of our phone system is a voice over the internet. Essentially, we just needed to make sure that everyone had Wi-Fi in their homes. We were able to make sure that they had a laptop and they could literally just pick their phone up from their desk and plug it in, and suddenly everybody's still on the same phone system, and we were able to take the phone calls, talk with clients, answer their questions, and continue working from home. And, of course, we have, some of our team have small children, and so they had no child care. They had, situations where medical conditions may put them at a higher risk for complications associated with this pandemic. So we were able to accommodate all of that, and we were able to do it fairly seamlessly and very quickly. And I think that having the ability to do that where we didn't really have any lag time while we were representing individuals, because obviously we had a pretty big caseload, in March, and then, of course, those cases still needed to be worked on, and things needed to be done. We needed to get medical records. We needed to send out settlement demands and try to move these cases. And so we were able to do that seamlessly. And I think that one of the things that I see that has changed for our firm, even though I still believe that we want clients to be able to meet with us in person so they can make an informed decision as to why they should hire us, at least we're able to do virtual consultations. We've been able to do virtual mediations and virtual depositions. if they're not comfortable coming into the office, we've made arrangements so that we can speak with them on the phone. Most of my clients have my cell phone number. I usually give that to them so that I can take their call nights and weekends and anytime the question comes up, and they don't feel like they have to come up to the office. We've also, made sure that if they do want to come in person, that we have, all the essentials, the hand sanitizer, the social distancing. We've been able to kind of modify our practice so that we only have perhaps one client in at a time and change our schedule a little bit. Some of our staff are still working from home part-time and working here. So I think we've done a really good job of being able to continue to provide a high level of service without everybody having to be here in the office every single day. And so that was that was unusual. The other thing is we can also send retainer agreements and medical authorizations directly to someone's phone. We've had that for a long time. We've just not really incorporated because we always try to meet with our clients. So now we can do an intake with a client over the phone, and if they choose they want us to represent them, they can have those documents, any documents, they can have those sent right to their phone. They can hire us on their phone, and they never even have to come in the office. So I think we adjusted pretty quickly, and I think it's allowed us to continue serving people. So that was probably the biggest change.
I'm actually amazed at how many people prefer that option now.
It's
crazy.
I
don't mind coming in, but once they're used to it, that becomes the new normal. And all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, you mean I don't have to come in there? We can just talk on the phone." Yeah, we can talk on the phone. We can do a Zoom call. Yeah, we can do a Zoom call. And now all of a sudden that's almost easier because it's easier than, especially when you have kids at home. And now all of a sudden you're in charge of that too. So getting away to go to your attorney's office is a little more difficult these days.
Right, and I don't mind that being the case if it's convenient for the client.
Exactly.
But when it becomes convenient for the attorney, that's when I have a problem. And so having the luxury of being able to do it whichever way they decide to do it. And of course, I still miss it. I've taken a lot of new cases recently over the phone, and it may be months before I see the individual. They'll stop by the office, and they'll come in with their mask on, and I'll have my mask, and we get to talk a little bit. But I really do miss the initial opportunity to get to know that.
Yeah, it's hard to beat that. Like when someone comes in and they're wearing, for instance, like a Georgia football shirt, and then you're like, "Oh, well, how'd you become a Georgia fan? How did that happen? Oh, I'm originally from Atlanta. Oh, when'd you come to Rocket?" It's those opportunities to really like see somebody and get to know them that you kind of miss out on when you're having those conversations on the phone.
And usually when they come into my office, they see me in a Harley Davidson shirt and a pair of jeans. And, of course, when I first stopped wearing suits to the office and coat and tie all the time, I felt that maybe I shouldn't be doing that. But the response was crazy. It was like the relief on someone's face when I walk in to meet with them in a conference room and I'm wearing jeans and a Harley Davidson shirt. It's an immediate connection. It's they go completely relaxed and they start actually opening up and giving me more information, and we have a lot of times a better bond.
Yeah, better connection.
I believe that making that adjustment was very important because I think it makes us a better law firm in terms of being able to accommodate the needs of the client versus just making it financially expeditious for us as a firm to go sign up a bunch of cases because we can do it more quickly and without the lawyer actually getting involved in that whole process. So, because I've had the other lawyers say, "I can't believe you're still doing your own intakes, man. You shouldn't you be doing
all
other
the time?"
things?"
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I'm not going to change. Having you be a little younger than me, I think having the old school way of doing handling cases and practicing law and having someone like yourself who's much younger, we've been able to balance that and still be able to provide the best of both worlds. So kudos to you and helping get all that set up so that we can, adapt. And that's what we had to do.
Well, we've talked a lot about, I think, mostly personal injury, but you mentioned briefly kind of the differences between what happens with medical treatment with a comp case versus a personal injury case. I want to talk a little bit more because that's another big practice area for us, and especially you, that I don't really get to play in very often. So kind of walk me through the differences between personal injury and comp and what you look for and when you are bringing in a new comp case.
Obviously, this is the first time I've had a chance to get up here and do the podcast, and y'all have handled a lot of good question and answer type of formats for personal injury. Well, personal injury obviously is, bringing an action against someone because of their negligence. You have to prove a duty, breach, causation, and damages. So first you have to prove there's a duty, that there was a breach of that duty, and because of that breach, someone has suffered injury. So you got to prove those four things. In a workers' comp case, workers' comp is essentially designed as no fault. You don't have to prove that the employer was at fault for your injury, which is very different. But also, workers' comp is really designed to protect both the employer and the employee. It insulates the employer from an employee bringing an action in tort for negligence, but it also makes sure that there are benefits that are provided to the injured worker. And it's essentially three benefits. One is medical treatment. If you get hurt on the job, they have to provide any medical treatment which reasonably tends to lessen your disability. So the workers' comp
sounds like a pretty low bar.
Well,
you would think.
But so what that allows an insurance company to do is to deny you medical treatment. They'll say, oh, well, we don't believe that would be helpful, or we don't believe that that is necessary. And so a lot of times people come to us because they've been denied medical treatment. You know, the doctor at the urgent care or the hospital recommended that this person go to physical therapy or to an orthopedic doctor or to see a neurologist or get an MRI. And then the workers' comp carrier comes in and says, oh, no, we don't think you need that. We're going to send you to a different doctor. So medical treatment, which regionally tends to lessen your disability, is the first benefit. The other is any weekly benefits. You're entitled to 2/3 your average weekly wage for the period of time that you've been written out of work. Once you've been out of work for 7 days, they owe you on the 8th day 1 day, and then on the 15th day, they got to go back and pick up the full 2 weeks. So weekly benefits at 2/3 your average weekly wage while you're written out of work by their doctor. So medical benefits weekly.
And that's important. You just said their doctor.
And I'll talk about that in just a minute. But so medical benefits, weekly benefits, and also when the doctor releases you and has determined that they've done all they can do for you, it is commonly referred to as maximum medical improvement, MMI. So once you've reached maximum medical improvement, your condition goes from temporary, where they've been paying you temporary total disability benefits or temporary partial benefits. Your condition now is deemed to have become permanent. And the doctor has to fill out a form to let us know what your impairment rating is. And that's your impairment rating. But what the law says, you're entitled to be paid based on your permanent disability. And the difference between impairment is basically your actual physical restrictions, your physical limitations that you may have as a result of the injury. Disability takes it a little bit further and takes into consideration the totality of the circumstances. And this is why it's so important to get a lawyer involved, because you may have a 5% impairment, but you also have a 15-pound lifting restriction. Well, if you were able to lift 60 pounds on a regular basis prior to your injury, and now the doctor has a 15% lift or 15-pound lifting restriction, well, clearly that has a much greater disabling effect on certain professions.
Right.
And so the totality
it's your job to change brake drums on trailers.
Right. So the totality of the circumstances basically takes into consideration your age, occupation, job training, and all of those other things that gets you to what your actual disability is, right? So you're assigned an impairment rating, and a good lawyer is able to help take all of those factors into consideration, and so they would owe something for your permanent partial disability or permanent total disability in some situations. So medical expenses, weekly benefits, and permanent disability benefits. So that's the benefits that workers' comp pays.
So where do you get involved? So if someone gets hurt on the job, at what point should they be contacting an attorney, and what questions do you normally get when you get that first phone call?
Well, usually it's because they don't like the tone of the insurance company. Now, you got to remember, they're not bringing a claim against their employer. They're bringing a claim against an insurance company that has been collecting premiums from their employer in many cases for years. And that insurance company gets involved, and they do their investigation, and they either determine that it was not an injury by accident arising out of and in the course and scope of employment, or that the medical treatment was unnecessary, or that it was idiopathic, that they had some pre-existing condition and it's not compensable. And that's when they will get involved. So obviously, it's very important first that if you think you've been injured on the job, is you report it to your supervisor, And if you think you need medical treatment,
That's step one.
yeah, step one. And y'all have covered this before, the 7 things that people do wrong, which is really, really good. So, but you got to report it. You got a 90-day reporting requirement, but the sooner you report it, the more likely it is that you will be believed. And more importantly, you can show that the injury was in fact something that happened at work. So what I look for is, was it an injury by accident arising out of and in the course and scope of their employment, and did they report it properly? And so once you report it and you believe you need medical treatment, you need to ask for them to send you to a doctor. Too many people make the mistake if they just go to the emergency room, they turn it in on their health insurance. They don't tell the doctor there that they'd gotten hurt on the job. They say they just strained their back or they pulled their back. They think they have a pulled back. But so what I'm looking for is an injury by accident arising out of and in the course scope of their employment. So let me explain that real quick. So an injury doesn't require there to be a specific event. Very clear in our in fact, I argued this in the Supreme Court, state Supreme Court, early in my career. It doesn't require there to be a single or isolated event, but it does need to be an unexpected result caused by the work or the job duties. Okay, so an injury by accident is an unexpected result from that work activity, right? So arising out of and in the course and scope of your employment means you had to have been doing your job, be engaged in your job duties or your work, and that's where the injury occurred, right? So a lot of people ask questions, well, I'd already clocked out and I was on my way home and I fell out in the parking lot. Well, typically going to and from work is not covered under workers' comp. There are certain exceptions. If you're charged with an extra duty, you're running an errand for the company, you're dropping off mail, getting involved in an accident after work may in fact be covered. But there's exceptions to the going and coming rule. But it needs to be an unexpected result that is the result of work activity or in the performance of your job. So that's what we look for. And then, of course, you asked the question about what kind of other questions do we get. The biggest one is, why do I have to go to their doctor?
Yeah.
Well, obviously that seems contrary because we believe in that doctor-patient relationship. So we hold it so, deeply that I should have the right to go to whatever doctor I want. I've already got a doctor. Why can't I go to my doctor? Well, the rationale behind that is they're paying for your medical treatment. So they get to choose your doctor because they want to make sure that they have a doctor that's going to also take into consideration that someone else is paying for this treatment. And since we're paying for the treatment, we want to be able to pick and choose which medical providers you go to, which facilities you go to, because we want to keep control and keep costs down. But the important part of that is not running out and going to a doctor on your own. It hurts a case quicker than anything, and sometimes we're not able to go back and get that treatment covered.
Well, Bennett, man, I appreciate you coming all the way up here and making the trip up. But there's a lot more I want to cover with comp and kind of get into the weeds. And let's do something cool where we do like the frequently asked questions and really get into that with you and Kevin. And why don't we try to arrange some kind of call over the next few weeks, a Zoom call with all of us, and we'll get in. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, I think that way we can have Kevin, who has been handling a lot of our workers' comp recently. Mm-hmm. He would love to do this, and we can do that so that we can get this information out. Because really it's important because a lot of people have a lot of misinformation about workers' comp.
Yeah.
Am I suing my employer? Why can't I go to my own doctor? So I think that I want to dispel some of those myths because, what we do is important, and there's a reason you get a lawyer involved, especially in a workers' comp case, because not every personal injury lawyer understands workers' comp. So it's more of a niche practice. There's not as many lawyers that handle workers' comp because it's very technical, and people can make mistakes really quickly and destroy their workers' comp case pretty quickly. So we don't want that to happen. So yeah, that'd be fun. Let's do a question and answer, and hopefully some people get some information.
Yeah, and you can tell Kevin to come up here because he hasn't gotten a turn in the hot seat. Because Charlie got his turn, Derek got his turn. Obviously, you're here today, so Kevin needs to come up, and we can ask him some fun questions too.
Well, I'm going to put you in the hot seat next time I'm up here.
Oh, it's my turn next time.
It's your turn next time because I'd like for people to actually understand. You asked me a lot of questions about my background and how I became a lawyer. Mm-hmm. I want people to hear your story. And so the next time I'm up here, you're in the hot seat.
There we go. That works for me.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, thanks once again for listening to Schiller and Hamilton podcast, and stay tuned for the next one. I think it's going to be this frequently asked workers' comp questions.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Thanks, man.
Thanks.